find me. Galaxy equalizer, ready like Freddy, and Studio Galaxy 473 in Confero. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it. Let no one challenge. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around. Galaxy in Confero, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you.
Welcome, brothers. Welcome, sisters. Welcome again to the. Welcome again to the program. And this is the second part of our program, and it's just pure politics. And this morning we're very fortunate to have with us again for the second time the opposition leader of Grenada, our sister NNP. It's always good to have the leaders in our country exchanging ideas, talking, interacting with the public. You're on Studio Galaxy 473 and you're with the Galaxy Equalizers. You can interrupt and give a call. The number to call is 536-2558. You can also post. And if you want to ask a question, we definitely will entertain you. So our sister's supposed to join us on the line, and I hope she is. Are you there?
I'm
Madam
here.
Opposition?
I am here. Good morning. Good morning to all of our listeners and our viewers.
Yeah.
Definitely a pleasure.
Used to the technology. I'm an individual who cry out constantly, sometimes for the elderly and individuals who are not so technologically savvy. I have been fighting around, and I sometimes imagine others. So welcome, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you. And I think you can consider yourself to be doing an excellent job in that regard. And I'm sure you're an inspiration to others of your age group and above.
I try with some partners, they believe I'm asking them to jump in the sea. But I try. Madam Opposition Leader, I heard you gone to England. What happened? You went and see King Charles? What was the purpose that brought you to England?
I was also privileged to have the opportunity to do that. Actually, the trip to England included five of us from the Parliament, and that was to do with the Public Accounts Committee. As you know, the Public Accounts Committee comprises 5 members, and of course, you know, you cannot be a member of the government or minister of government. So obviously it includes members of the opposition, upper and lower house. And so all 5 of us had the opportunity to be there on the invitation of the Public Accounts Committee in the UK, the UK Parliament, and the CPA, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. And that was an excellent opportunity, in my opinion, to get the team gelling together, but more so understanding the fundamental role that it has to play as it relates to the scrutiny of government accounts and ensuring that we get value for money, and we look at what is happening in terms of the spending and the programs of government as it relates to accountability. So that was primarily our activities there.
I'm an individual who is extremely concerned about how we spend money in a small country. And I one time want to take you to the Grenada Development Bank. You see, in 1973, you would not have known. But the government then was under serious criticism. And then the government put legislation or regulation in place in the Grenada Development Bank. Are you concerned about this present regime raiding the development bank?
I'm extremely concerned from two perspectives. One, the legal aspect of things, and the other one has to do with how this affects ordinary people. And I want to deal with the aspect of legal first, because as you hinted to there, a member of government is not supposed to benefit from the resources of the Grenada Development Bank. So, in other words, you are not supposed to access a loan. And quite obviously, there would be reasons to justify that, right? And we don't even have to go into those. Now, so the law has been broken. Let's start with that. The law has been broken. And so the board of directors, those in management of that particular institution ought to know better that no minister of government should be given monies. And the amount is also, I mean, it's frightening that one person would be able to draw down as much as $3 million from the bank that is supposed to be the people's bank, right? And if you take that one step further, you don't get maybe an apology. You don't get somebody resigning. You don't get somebody saying, well, maybe we were not aware, but now we are. We are going to repay to the bank that which was taken. Instead, what you're getting is a justification, almost like we can do whatever we want to do, whenever we want to do, how we want to do it, and you just shut your mouth, don't say anything. And, you know, the people of this country ought to recognize that there's been a serious shift as it relates to the governance of this country, the behavior of those in government as it relates to respect for public institutions. But there's the flip side of this. There's the flip side of this, which is how does that impact the ordinary man or woman out there? As you know, this institution is supposed to be serving our farmers, our fishermen. It is supposed to be impacting the productive sector of our society. And I'm not surprised that the average person, the average business person, the average farmer, fisherman out there, when you speak to them, the average person, you ask them how they have benefited recently from the institution, and many of them will tell you that they were told they don't qualify. So they've been trying to access small amounts, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, and they've been given the runaround in many instances. They don't qualify, they don't have security. And there you have a minister of government accessing as much as 3 million. And we are told that without security, that a loan of that magnitude that would go beyond the life of this current administration is not properly secured. But yet you have the ordinary man being denied a loan for as small as 10, 15, $20,000 because he doesn't have the security. I mean, tell me how this can be fair, right? How can it be right? And so you ask if I'm concerned, extremely concerned about these developments. And we are learning it's not one minister, more than one, benefiting from something they're not supposed to benefit from because of their position, their title, their role in this administration.
Right, he's back.
Yeah,
Back now.
Manate. Yeah.
Internet glitch. Go ahead.
Well, we had a internet glitch. You're in some terminologies, you know. Say normally I say internet breakdown, but they say internet glitch. Are you hearing me, there?
You're doing very well.
Yeah, we're back on.
Yeah.
We want to welcome back again, and we do hope we're able to reach back the opposition leader. We,
I'm here. I don't know if you're hearing me.
we're back on. Are you hearing us?
I'm hearing you loud and clear. I'm not sure if you're hearing me.
Yes, I hear you, Lord. Thank you very much. Well, this was a little break in the technician said it was um some little challenges that we have. Remember that I say it's not me, the technician. Yes, we want to apologize to our listeners and the public, and we, at the same time, we want to encourage you to share our program, like our program, subscribe to Studio Galaxy, give us a blight. Madam Minister and Opposition Leader, ma'am, the ordinary people, some ordinary people would go and get a loan, but there are people who is not interested in a loan. They don't require a loan, but something, when these things happen, it damages their confidence in the system. Sometimes we tend to ignore the damage that takes place to people's confidence, and then people believe, well, if the authorities could flaunt the law with such impunity, what's about me? How we address that?
No, you're absolutely right. And ordinary people are looking on, they're observing what's happening. So I had one person who made an application, was turned down. The application was turned down. And that person said to me, well, if a minister could get $3 million, why couldn't I get 10,000? Right? I have a family to take care of. My children have to go to school. I'm just trying to make an honest dollar. All I need is a little loan to get me started. Right? So that's the perspective from which people are looking on. But there's a bigger side to that picture. It is not just that that ordinary person is not able to access $10,000 and they have a family to take care of, but it's also how many persons would be denied because that is $3 million less that is available for people to access. And when we look at what is happening in our country right now, very little is going into the productive sectors. Very little is invested in the productive sectors. And that is precisely why the bank has been set up, so that the productive sectors, agriculture, fisheries, all of these sectors are supposed to be primary beneficiaries of these funds. And so if you are doing it for the purpose of bailing out a minister of government, if you're using it for the purpose of helping out a minister of government, that there goes contrary to the very reason why this was established in the first place.
The NNP has been around. The NNP has been around for a very long time. So obviously they must have some legal luminaries backing them. When people violate the law with such impunity, what is the next course of action?
Well, I would say first, Mr. Pierre, that you expect that those in authority would do the right thing. As a matter of fact, you're supposed to know that you're not supposed to accept funds from the GDP for that purpose. So you're supposed to know. So you're not even supposed to do it in the first place. And then secondly, if it's done, those who lead. So for example, the prime minister should not be coming to defend this. What he should be doing is taking actions to deal with it rather than defending, rather than providing excuses, rather than attacking those who raise the issue. So we should not even allow this to have to get into the legal sphere. It should be dealt with by those who have a conscience that presides over this country, that leads this country, and they're supposed to take the lead in doing what is right. This is supposed to be the government of transparency, accountability, good governance. That's what it's supposed to be. So because of that, you should not even have to wait for somebody to point out that this was done against the laws of Grenada. So we would hope that good sense would prevail. We continue to raise the issues. We continue to ask those in authority, those who have the teeth to do something, to take the necessary actions.
But I'm not do not believe that this government would take the necessary action unless they are forced to. There are so much other acts of corruption that is rumored widely in Grenada. From the National Lottery, gravel and concrete, to the Prime Minister himself accepting gifts that was not retired to the Integrity Commission. How you respond to that?
It is actually overwhelming, the number of reports from high places to low places. And when I say high places, you're talking about in government ministries, and you're talking about in the constituencies, contractors, and people involved in different activities. I have never heard of so many reports of corruption in any single government at any time. I've never heard so. And when you listen to some of the reports, the blatant disregard for laws, the blatant disregards for rules and procedures, it is frightening where we are heading. And what is even worse is that when these things are raised, you get two responses. As I said, the response is tantamount to shut your mouth, that's not your business. In essence, that's what is said. And then secondly, the other response is that we do our own investigation, right? And we find no wrongdoing. And you look at, for example, the issues that have been raised week upon week upon week as it relates to Jenny's program. And I'm speaking of this one as an example, where she says she has the facts. She knows for sure that this has happened. She presents the facts to the Integrity Commission, and then you have a member of the NDC comes out to say that he has information from the Integrity Commission to confirm the innocence of the minister. And these things are beyond imagination. These things are so blatantly wrong that you sit back and you wonder, when did we reach to this situation? When did we reach to the position where ministers of government or members of political party can access information from the Integrity Commission? This is one. And it is unfortunate that until now, the Integrity Commission has not made a statement with regards to this, right? The government itself has been tight-lipped about this. So you have a member of a party defending a minister of government, and the government itself has not, in essence, said, okay, what is the right thing to do? We are going to launch an independent investigation into this matter. So our expectation is that there would be some independent investigation. I'm not talking about friends and family investigating, independent, trustworthy people investigating to give the public what the truth is. Until such time, what do you expect people to believe? You know, the level of bullying that is taking place over this matter, I mean, you can't overlook it. And you have to ask yourself the question, what is there that is being defended? What is there that all of a sudden people are not to talk about issues? People are not supposed to raise issues. You're out of place to raise a concern about governance in this country, about the management of the country's resources. I don't know when we got to this point. It's very unfortunate that we have gotten to this point.
We reach there fast and then we end up in Telescope with an explosion of a grandeur I have never heard in my life. Not even in the revolution, I've heard an explosion like that. Telescope is in practically your yard.
Yeah. I think we are missing the critical elements of this explosion. So there are several elements. And let us start with the fact that this should not have happened in the first place. Let's start there. And then let us move to the risk, the national security risk that this would have created. And this could have been almost anything besides what happened. So it could have been something happened in the tongue of Grenville, as these explosives were transported from Point Celine, such a long distance, maybe over an hour, from Point Celine all the way to Telescope. And I continue to try to understand, why did you have to bring it to Telescope? Why Telescope? And I'm hoping that maybe in the final report that we are going to get, hopefully very soon, that there are going to be those explanations. Why was Telescope the most appropriate place to bring unstable, those were the words used by the Prime Minister to describe it, unstable explosives? If they're unstable, the question is, what kind of procedure and protocol did you put in place to protect the lives of people? And by what happened, definitely we can conclude that there were no serious protocols in place to protect people's lives. And so we may take gloss over this because nobody died. But in glossing over it, we must consider what could have happened and to ask ourselves, who should be held accountable for something so serious? And if you ask me, this is a national security issue. This is a national security issue. And I hope we are going to get some answers very quickly, very soon, from the Minister for National Security on this major threat to the lives of citizens of this country. But not just, also said that we should not just get an explanation of what happened, but we should be given sufficient reason to feel comfortable that something like this will not happen. And other things, like, for example, do we have more unstable explosives anywhere? And if we do have, where? What are the conditions under which they are stored? Who's managing them? Will they be moved? And what would be the protocol for moving them in the future? Will they be destroyed? And what would be the protocol for destroying them in the future? So all of these more questions and answers that we have. But I am uncomfortable that we are trivializing this matter too much. And a report on what happened should not be taken more than a week, in my opinion, to have a conclusion and to speak to the general public to give an explanation. But let us zero in to the damages that were caused. And I want to put them into two categories, the physical, and then you have the psychosocial. And I'm extremely concerned about both areas. And of course, my constituents have been directly affected. So let's talk about the damages. So yes, I love the fact that many of my constituents are getting a brand new television, maybe upscale and all of that. That is beautiful. That is welcome. Entertainment purposes, wonderful. But I am more concerned about the homes that were damaged. I had to try to get a tarpaulin over to someone recently because when the rain is coming, of course, that person, the water is coming into the house, right? So the government needs to move very fast, gravel and concrete, whoever is doing that aspect of it, they need to move very fast on this matter. And to the mercenaries of the government, who are saying that it is the MP's responsibility to repair homes. I mean, come on, you don't take your job so far that you try to mislead people in such a way that, you know, people cannot be misled. Now, the responsibility to repair these homes rests with the government of Grenada. And of course, the statutory body of the government, gravel and concrete, if they have the resources, I don't know, the government would delegate whatever they do. But I'm just saying that we need to move speedily. We cannot have people wetting in their homes 2-3 weeks after an incident like this, because we've had a week gone, another week, and now we're moving. Now we need to move faster. And I know that there has been efforts to assess and to collect information, measurements, etc. But I'm saying, let us continue to keep the speed on this because people are indeed affected. But there are the persons, and just to make that point, there are also persons who might be experiencing structural damages. I'm not an engineer, but of course, you know, if you have a structure and that structure shakes too much, you can have cracks, and some people have experienced cracks. Some people have experienced damages to their pillars. So you're talking foundation issues. There are some people who might not be able to go under the house, so they might not see exactly what's happening below there. And because of that, there are some people, the roof might have moved, and you're speaking about a big concrete house. So you need to ensure that these things are properly assessed, not just a walk around and look around and take some measurements and go. You need a proper engineer to look at some of these houses as well.
Would your political party advise some lawyer, some legal representation for the people in your constituency?
Well, at this point, immediately, I would say, and this is just my personal opinion, at this point, I would say no. The fact that a commitment was given, and in good faith, people are working with those who are doing the assessments, and we expect that they would stick to their commitment as it relates to repairing anything that was damaged during the explosion, right? So as it relates to that, I would say, let us look another week or so and see what happens, another 2 weeks, see what happens, and then we can proceed from there. But I think in good faith, there were commitments made, and let us give an opportunity for the measurements and the assessment to be completed and see what happens thereafter. But there's the other side of this, not just the physical and the structure of houses, and so very important, the psychosocial. And sometimes we have a tendency in disasters to look over that. And when I listen to persons who shared their experience, and I'm speaking both adults and children, it is clear that we cannot underestimate the need for the psychosocial support. And as a constituency, we have been providing support in that regard. We continue to do that. We are happy to do that. But of course, the commitments as it relates to house repair, replacement of things that were damaged, I want to ensure that this happens speedily and that people find relief out of the damages they've suffered.
Have you able to get a commitment from government that the next time that they're using explosive, they must notify the public?
Well, of course, this is mandatory.
But it
right?
is not mandatory because they did not do it.
This is simple, and I cannot understand why the public was not notified. Now, I live very close to the SSU camp.
Was it purposely done?
I live close to the SSU camp, and this is the point I'm coming to. Was that a secret? Is my question. I live close to the SSU camp, and for years, whenever there's going to be live firing, there's the notification. It's normally sometimes on the radio. I mean, sometimes I even miss it. But the bottom line is procedurally, people are informed because I can hear the firing from where I live, right? And not just in terms of any damage that it might be able to cause that people must be aware, but also just the trauma that it can cause if you don't know what's happening. And so the question I have, which is exactly what you're pointing to, was there an intention not to let people know? Was it deliberate that people were not informed? Was it deliberate? And so there are many questions that must be answered in this report that I'm expecting very soon. I can't believe that we're going to go more than 2 weeks without a proper report.
Were there any press conference by the police or the Prime Minister on that issue?
None at all. None at all. There are two things. I was shocked. I looked at the video. And that's what I'm saying. Procedures, protocol. You know, there was just such an absence of this. So the explosive went off. And it was so scary for me to look on and see people going on the site, to see police officers on the site. So, I mean, did we do an investigation to determine whether there were others, what was there? You know, the lack of care, the lack of safety and the procedures to ensure safety was so absent in this regard. And then there was a public meeting that was taking place, I believe it was the same evening, and the prime minister made some comments there. And what I mean really got to me was that he was speaking and there was a grin on his face in and out of what he was saying. And, I got the feeling it's like this thing is not being taken serious. It's like just another thing that happened. And this is so fortunate.
And that is why I believe that while you have the psychologist, you should also work with a lawyer on that issue. Because I believe sometimes it's difficult for you to accept the fact that this perhaps was not intended purposely. So I believe we should work with a lawyer, because there are some people that may not even recognize the impact of this blast on them at this present time.
Well, of course, we know that in cases like these, a lot of the impact is not seen or felt immediately after, right? So months later, right, there are things that may happen. And then you have people now in a state where almost anything that happened, they're trying to determine on their own, is that related? Is there a correlation between that and the explosion? So I've heard persons very confused speaking about one sudden death and whether that was probably related in any way. A fire, whether that was related in any way. I mean, who can justify that without expertise? But at the end of the day, I'm showing you the trauma and the challenges. And sometimes people brush these things aside insensitively, because people express their concern. We have become a nation where you are supposed to say absolutely nothing once it relates to the current government and shows them up in a negative light. You're supposed to be mute.
Madam Minister, there is word on the ground that explosives was found around Carlton House also. I don't know if you hear this rumor, but I would have liked one of the journalists to ask the Prime Minister or the police when they have an interview. Because the police must know if they had explosive around Carlton House, and if he have more.
And you see, those are the things that, so just imagine how people in that vicinity might be feeling right now, because they're in a situation where they just don't know. They've been denied information that they should have. So someone from the authorities should be saying, these are the locations that we have explosives. You should not be worried, because these are the conditions under which they are stored, they are protected, and that no one would be in danger. And this is how far away it is. And, even when you speak about how far away, think about the telescope explosion and how far away people heard the noise coming from that and how affected they were. And they were not even living anywhere in telescope. So this is not a simple matter, and it must not be trivialized. It must not be treated that way. And as I said before, the Minister for National Security, it's a national security issue, should be speaking clearly on this matter, giving the assurance to people that they are safe, given the assurance that these things are now in place to prevent anything. As a matter of fact, we don't even have to wait for a report to put systems in place to prevent another occurrence of this. And sometimes, we can laugh about these things because we are not affected. So you live in X place and you laugh about it because you are not in Telescope and you don't know what the people of Telescope experience. But here what? We just don't know where else there might be explosives. So that is the frightening thing about this situation. Every single person should be concerned, because it could have been your house. It could be your house. It could be a situation affecting you.
On another program that I had, I sent them to two people, to find out if they are more explosive to Ewart Lane and the political commotion. But at the same time, I want to ask you this question. The returning officer, the supervisor of election, and the governor general seems to be extremely tolerant to the actions of Amanda Jack. Why?
And I wish I could have answered the why. I can only speculate at this time. It's mind-boggling. It's beyond the ability to comprehend something so basic and straightforward that a registration officer has conducted herself in a way that is outside of the rule, outside of the law, and that her conduct is now going to cause people to lose confidence in a system, in an institution. And it just appears to the authorities, the Governor General, Supervisor of Election, and others, that this doesn't bother them. And because of that, it begs the question, are they really concerned about free and fair elections? Are they really concerned about protecting and preserving important institutions in this country, right? And again, I'm making the point that we've given sufficient time for a response. To date, we have not received the response to the last letter, which said that we cannot be comfortable with just putting a note in the file of the individual to say that she has behaved inappropriately in her position. This is unacceptable. So what would have happened is that we wrote, and the letter we wrote triggered an investigation. The investigation basically concluded that the individual in question was not supposed to conduct herself in that manner. And it goes against what is expected of her, right? Now, the conclusion on the side of the Governor General and the Supervisor of Election was to put a note on her file, a warning letter on her file. And we are saying this is unacceptable. You cannot, on more than one occasion, be seen actively participating in a political activity and then give the impression that you ended up there, just by chance, somebody invited you. I mean, I read that report and I said just the report in itself, written by the individual, was sufficient reason to have that individual change. Because if your level of judgment is so poor, that let's just break that down. So your level of judgment is so poor. Somebody invites you to an activity. You're so innocent. You didn't ask where you was going, what it is. You didn't know what it was. And you decide to go. And you get there and you realize it's an NDC women's arm activity. As a matter of fact, this activity was supposed to be for delegates. So how did you get in? Well, that's for the organization to answer. But you're inside the activity. And let's use one of the activities. You're inside the activity now. So let's just give the benefit of the doubt. You had no clue where you were going. A key member of the National Democratic Congress invited you, took you along. You went along with that person. You mean between then and now, they never told you where you were going. You had no clue. Let's just believe that story that has no substance. Let's just believe it for a moment. So you left to go to an NDC convention, never asked where you were going. You got there, you got inside, you realized it was an NDC convention, and you decide to be clapping and participating. Now, who's supposed to take you serious after this? Then you left again, you were invited, you went to a national rally of the party. Again, you had no clue what it was. You went in there, but you're in the middle of the rally with a flag waving. Now, who's supposed to take this individual serious? Who's supposed to take those in authority over her? Who's supposed to take them serious on this matter?
Madam Minister, around the tongue long, people have been thrown out of the process for statement they have made. And as such, Amanda Jack the supervisor of election, and the Governor General, Dame Cecile Grenada, have to be placed under scrutiny as if they want to contaminate the electoral process.
This is a red flag for us. This is a red flag for us. If you're going to condone this behavior, if you're going to allow such behavior to continue, then what it says to us is that we should have absolutely no confidence in you and how you are going to preside over the next general election. That is the red flag that is there, because I've seen it in other countries. Right in Trinidad, last election, you had a situation quite similarly. And that person was removed from the position because anyone presiding over this institution would want to at least give the impression, at least the impression, that it is free and fair, right? And so this is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. And we will not stop on this matter until it is addressed in a matter that is fitting for the circumstances that surrounds it.
We have had 2 referendums in Grenada, and we failed to make changes to the constitution. But it seems that we have in a coup, a backdoor legal attempt to change the constitution. How do you react to that?
Well, I would put it this way. From the New National Party's perspective, we do not have any issue at all with the proposed change to the Constitution. That is to change the oath of allegiance to the Queen or the King, and to let that be to Grenada, right? We have absolutely no issue with that change being made. As a matter of fact, it was included in the 2016 referendum as one of the sub-items. So our role in opposition does not cause our view or position on this matter to change. We are very consistent. So we supported it in government and we will support it in opposition. What we have a serious issue with, a serious concern, and should this bill come before the Parliament within the next month or so, we would not be willing to support, not because we don't support the issue, right, that is put forward, the proposal that is put forward, the change that is put forward, but we are fundamentally against rushing this matter and pushing it down the throats of Grenadians without their involvement, at least in the discussion on this matter. So we believe that at this time, there should be widespread consultation. There should be widespread education. There should be widespread debate on this subject. Now, the issue of whether it needs a referendum or doesn't need a referendum is a separate issue. And let me say this, we had a presentation by the team. Based on the information presented, we believe that it's not necessary to have a referendum. But since then, there have been several persons raising several serious issues as to why they believe there is a need for a referendum. Now, this is not about us as politicians, as parliamentarians. This is about the nation. This is about the future. This is about our Grenadian identity, our nationalism. And so, because it's not just about us, we're not the only person to be convinced of this. So what we want to see is that there is intense engagement of the Grenadian population so that people can be comfortable with whatever process that is going to be used to achieve the outcome that we all, well, that we support. I have to say, I can say we all, but I can say we support. So the vehicle that you're going to use, we want to make sure that people are comfortable with the opposition at this point. We want to see more education, more debate, more public engagement, and done
We
behind any bill
It's her internet, not ours.
that's brought forward.
we tamper with the Constitution in 1979, 1983. And it seems that some of the very said elements are again want to use legal means to tamper with the Constitution.
Her internet froze.
How,
Her internet froze.
so we have a challenge now with your internet.
Yeah, we good.
Yeah. A slight challenge with the internet of the minister. And we hope she come back because they're hearing us, huh? The public hearing
Yeah, the
us.
public is saying this. Yeah.
Yes, so we have a slight challenge again with the internet from the minister. The question we've been asking is, it appears that in 1979, 1983, the revolution suspend the Constitution. And it seems as though we have some revolutionary members again using legal means to avoid going to the people to get a mandate. They decide to tweet the Constitution without going to the public. And we take the strongest objection to that. We lost the minister there for a minute, but she will be back. And while we're discussing that, we are hearing on the ground that one of the big czars in the revolution, Ewart Lane, is now one of the advisors to the government. We know for a fact, based upon what we hear, and the government never disputed, and the prime minister said that he paying money for good relationship. So we are worried that some of these legal minds are getting money to tweet, to violate what we believe is the right of our people, that is supposed to have a say if the Constitution are to change. On 2 occasions, headed by Francis Alexis, people rejected the change in the Constitution. It's a democracy. If people reject the change, they reject the change. Now we are using other methods to see if we could sideline the voice of the people. We have to be very careful with that. When we give politicians the right to go and change the Constitution, what next? What next? We see the level of the level of erosion that take place in the Grenada Development Bank, the Public Service Commission, the National Lottery Board of Directors, Gravel and Concrete Directors. How these institutions, the directors, seems to fall under the spell of money. Government is able to use encouragement money to convince them to go the government way. And I think it's very unfortunate. Grenadians have to be careful because there is no end in it. Once you could go inside there and change the Constitution and not involve the people as stated in the Constitution, you are opening the door for other issues that we're going to pay a heavy price for. You knew what happened in the revolution. Next thing they go and fixing, they pass laws to cut out the media. You heard the prime minister advocating that they give information on a need-to-know basis. We didn't get back the opposition, and that is one of the topics we wanted her to speak on. And also Grenada debt. Because the manner in which the government going there, it could well be that the government is making more debt. We have had 3 structural adjustment programs with the international monetary involved, the IMF. And when you have a structural adjustment program, whether you like it or not, you have to make sacrifices. The union perhaps is the first one that's going to ball. Because they may say you have to drop the tax threshold. The tax threshold in Grenada, I think it's $3,000 a month. If you're not making as much as $3,000, you do not have to pay personal income tax. And people who are on pension, they are not paying tax on pension. In some other countries in the Caribbean, it is as low as $1,200. So when you end up in a structural adjustment program, you would see a number of safety net program being cut. You see the government of Grenada is the biggest employer. You see even this government now, I believe they have increased the amount of people in security. And all in a means to provide employment for people. So what you're likely to have is more people unemployed and taxes are raised. When these things happen in other countries, you have a whole set of social problems. So we would have liked the minister to respond to that.
Yeah, she's loading up back.
She's trying to get back to us,
Yeah.
and we're waiting for on the question of debt. We still have to want to ask her questions on that issue. Some of them we may not able to reach that, but the question of the debt, and particularly the NDC, you remember during the period 2008, 2013, they were selling government property right, left, and center. In fact, 13 pieces of property was sold. They sold property that did not belong to them. And they sold shares that they didn't have authority to sell. I never hear that long. I've said to people normally, if NDC was one individual that had to, they didn't jail, judge 1,000 years would have given them about 40 years in jail because she might like that. Should have given them only 40 years. And then immediately we had to go into a structural adjustment program. So what the government is doing there, this level of corruption, the destruction of the guardrails, and flaunting the financial rules with impunity, and the kind of gala mentality, and the level of corruption in every creek and corner, with low productivity, could well bring this country back
Check on them comments.
to a question here.
While she load up.
And we will try to get some comments. We know that the minister is making an attempt to come back. Sheldon Sylvester.
Yeah.
We the
Yeah, I'm
people.
actually in. I've been hearing you.
Yes.
You're there. All right.
Thank you. So,
Well, we can see you.
well, yes, but you could respond.
Yeah.
Particularly, I was speaking about the government debt. You're concerned about. You said you've been hearing me? You off again?
Her mic is muted again.
You have to take on unmute your mic. You have to unmute the mic again.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
back in, but there obviously is a serious internet issue. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it's on my end or your end. I actually used an alternative.
You've been
And it
hearing me?
seems like it's still, so I'm not sure if it's from your end. I'm actually hearing you in and out.
Okay. So we've been speaking about government debt, and while while you were out, we were saying a lot of things. But we're speaking, are you concerned because you was involved in a group that had to partake in the structural adjustment program after the NDC sold about 13 pieces of property and brought the country into free fall, the economy? Yeah?
So the internet seems to be dropping terribly. As I said, not sure if it's on your end or mine, but I heard you make the point that government back then was selling assets to pay salaries. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, and the economy went in free fall and we had to go to a structural adjustment program. You didn't restart your device, you
Right.
just went on your
So
Yeah, go ahead.
so
Go
what
right.
concerns me when you say selling assets to pay salaries and to meet basic recurrent expenses, not to view our passports as an asset. And that brings me to the CBI program. So it can well be viewed from that perspective, because when you look at the revenues collected from CBI right now, I mean, thankfully, that is what is keeping us going as an economy. The heavy reliance on CBI revenues, contrary to what happened in the past, is of course.
Yeah, we experiencing the challenge back, Kojo.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we good. Our internet is good.
Yeah, so maybe we perhaps not taking the blame for this one. Maybe you have some challenges on your side. And while you're off again, we continue to speak about you started with the government, the CBI program. The government had collected a lot of money from CBI program. They boast 1 billion, but in Grenada we are not seeing what they're doing with it, and it appears that they're using that money for current expenditure. And the Attorney General, she said the IMF warned us. She said the IMF warned us. She said if we continue like that, we're going to cause serious damage. And then she had a qualifier, irreparable damage to the economy. And if you have the CBI program, which you shouldn't make your economy so dependent on it for recurrent expenditure, and in this case, use it in the productive sector. And if you're using it just for recurrent expenditure, you're likely to end in serious shortfall if that come to naught. And there are possibilities that you could have a serious fall in the intake from the CBI program, and you put your country into serious problem. So the NDC have not been managing the economy well. And from day one, we've been pointing out, we've been begging them, don't be over-reliant on the CBI program to finance your budget. The returns from the CBI program ought to be invested in the productive sector of the economy. And all the pundits, all the economic pundits, the czars, begged them not to do that. And they did not pay heed. And I even have to give the Minister of Legal Affairs a blighter, because she want them to. She said we cannot continue to do that. But the government seems money flowing in their hand, and they behaving very irresponsible, like people are taking drugs. Money in their hand, and they squandering that sum of money. If we continue like that, and that is my biggest fear, and from day one I've been saying that if we continue like that, we're going to push the economy in free fall. And when it reaches there, you have to get the International Monetary Fund to come to you again. It means you lack discipline. The government have dismantled the guardrails, the economic discipline put in place that contributed to the fact that when they came in office in 2022, they were shocked and surprised that they had 500 million in the economy to start with. They just squandered this money. They used it badly. They didn't recognize that this money was there because of the discipline, the economic discipline. And we spent over the last 3 years pointing out that to the corruptor in chief and asking him not to go down there. Now, if you live in the country and you have had to go to structural adjustment program on 3 occasions, you must be concerned about getting involved in a structural adjustment program. I have said repeatedly that I have disappointed that the union have not been proactive. I've spent all my life challenging the unions in Grenada to be more proactive rather than reactive. There are big companies in the Caribbean. When they come, unions and government have to join up to deal with them. You are the ARC cement company in Barbados. Unions and government have to join up and deal with these companies. This is mega companies. And you cannot continue to make the same mistake all the time and you're looking for Godfather. And when you're done, you're calling the Godfather neo-colonialism and capitalism and all sorts of issues. So that's one of the serious challenges we have. You know, obviously, the question of Karikou, again, remember the number to call is 536-2558. And we will take your call. We have about 5 minutes again, so we may not hear the minister unless the minister pick up the telephone and call us. Madam Minister, if you're hearing us, just pick up your telephone and use WhatsApp and call 536-2558. That might be the best thing to call. I would like to hear you call and round up the program. 536-2558. You could use that number. Internet giving trouble. Yes. And I think it's the internet on your end now. So the minister has a challenge. So we were glad to have on. Obviously, because we didn't get you so clear, you have no choice but to come back very, very, very soon on our program. There are a number of issues that we didn't get to touch, you know, and we want to speak about. We have to speak about healthcare. You have a prime minister, and it seems to me, in fact, it is reasonable for me to believe that that prime minister we have is under some mind-altering substance. I look at his face, I look at his eyes when he's speaking, I look at the readiness, the prime minister ready to tell a lie. He seems to forget what he says, and then he lies. And the prime minister is reacting to every question you ask without thinking. If you follow the prime minister with the jab story alone, it saddens your heart. Wow, it saddens your heart. So how could you trust an individual like that with millions of dollars? The prime minister is making a deal to spend $500 million to build a hospital. The minimum, and I'm very conservative when I speak it, 500 million is the minimum. And I'm not talking about retrofitting the hospital. 500 million. And that will take about 10 years. And while he is doing that, then where you won't get money to pay, he don't have money to buy drugs. He doesn't seem to have money for to staff the hospital and the necessary. So I believe, based upon what we are hearing, this prime minister is out to turn billionaire before he leave office. And that is his main intention. He has not one iota of patriotism in his blood. Not one dram of patriotism in his blood. He is just greedy and he wants to harvest the coffers of this country to enrich himself. Some of the people around him recognize that. And they are already taking advantage of it. In fact, they're saying, well, if he grappling, I grappling too. You remember Ron's statement with a gracious offer. Don't take these things lightly. And some of the things you are hearing, it appears that the people around the prime minister is just grappling. We have heard stories where one individual paid $100,000 down payment cash on a piece of property. And the property was $1 million and something, and he wanted to pay it cash. I had a ball, you know. The lawyer ball. I said, no. So it seems as though he worked with a credit union to pay that money. Some of the acts of corruption that I'm hearing I have never heard that in my life. As an individual who endeavor to walk the straight and narrow while you involved with government and advocated that public officers must walk the straight and narrow. And so a lot of public officers did their utmost to walk the straight and narrow. This is sad. The level of corruption we're hearing in the country is sad. And I know the Prime Minister is a favorite in the diaspora. So I also want to challenge people in the diaspora. When we speak, don't readily believe us. Don't just take what I say as fait accompli. I dare you to take me on. Challenge me. Ask the Prime Minister of Grenada these questions. And watch him in his eyes when you ask him. Ask the Minister of Finance. Ask Ron. Ask them the questions. Listen to some of their own utterances when they speak. One minister says some people say they could work. When you give them the job, it's a disaster. The Minister of Finance, shame to speak about some of the things that are happening in the country. He's shame to speak about some of the things that happen. Grenada is a small country. When something happen, we know. When we said to you that one minister gave his landlord a contract for $90,000 and the landlord gave somebody else the contract for $50,000, the landlord make $40,000 and the individual finished the job in 1 week. We shame to say less, so we say in 1 week. Some of the level of corruption you're hearing in Grenada baffles the mind. It baffles the mind. And we strongly believe that the opposition leader and the NNP must turn to the lawyers and find out what they could do to challenge the two ministers that benefited from the GDB Bank. And they must make a call that the board must resign. The directors of the board must resign. Their name must be blacklisted. And they must put Amanda Jack on the blacklist. And I warn Mr. Pierre, that is the supervisor in election, that if you follow the scenes, the situation, you must go in jail. Because the electoral process in Grenada is the envy of other countries in the Caribbean. Our electoral process in Grenada have been practically spotless. No one has challenged it successfully. And within 24 hours, the side that lost election conceded defeat because they have so much confidence in the staff, in the supervisor of election staff. So Alwyn Pierre, I don't know if his name is Alwyn, I know he's Pierre. He must be my cousin too. A Pierre is a Pierre. Let the Governor General fire Amanda Jack, or you fire yourself. Get away from the potential corruption. The Governor General of Grenada, Dame Cecile Grenada, seems to be in a hanky-panky. She don't want a peasant. She can't stand a peasant. You see, Eric Gary was a peasant. Keith Mitchell was a peasant. And Tillman Thomas was a peasant. They tolerated Tillman because they did not realize he had the so hard. They think they could have walked over Tillman Thomas. They say, but Tillman Thomas is like a pig that crossing the road. Where he put his head, there his head is. He doesn't change. So they tolerated Tillman Thomas. But they say they're dealing with a peasant. Now they found out the cure for that peasant. And Iwat Lane And Ewart Lane represent the extreme group in Grenada. When you talk about Ewart Lane, you talk about the RMC. You're talking about the extreme group in Grenada. Ewart Lane represent that. He seems to be directing the NDC now from behind. He seems to be directing the NDC from behind. You must find out who was his political commotion. I've said before, in relating to finding out if we have more explosive all around the country, we must ask Ewart Lane. And if Ewart Lane don't know the specific area, the political commotion, going to know. You're going to call up his team and he would know. So as we come to the end of the program, once again, we apologize that we had this break in the internet, and we will try to see if we could engage the opposition leader again next week, Saturday, if once we could, to continue. And we want to thank you very much for participating in this program. We encourage you to give us a blind. Subscribe to a program. Share with program. Like with program. What we do here, we provoke discussion. We believe in the democratic process and we fear no one. Thank you very much.
Freedom of speech is enshrined in the land. God, we freedom. Jealous and they in Cuba. Russians and Chinese and lucky like we. Right now, North